Republicans' response from South Carolina Senator Jim DeMint. Mr. DeMint, welcome back to the show, sir.
Well, thank you, Larry. It's really not that complex. We should not raise taxes during a recession. That's what this president and this Democrat Congress is intending to do.
All right, so let's catch up. You heard what Eamon Javers said, and Senator McConnell, the Republican leader, says he's submitting legislation. I don't know if anyone else has submitted legislation that would freeze all the tax rates for 1 year. Does that effectively end the debate, John Boehner or not?
Well, I think it does. All the Senate Republicans are going to hold together. We know we can't help the middle class by taxing the people who give them the jobs. And that's a part of the economic equations the Democrats don't seem to understand. The folks who invest, 25% of the consumption comes from the top few percent of wage earners. Larry, you know that taxing upper income is going to hurt all Americans. And so it doesn't make any sense in the middle of this recession with high unemployment to let taxes go up on anyone. But Larry, in the last few months, every Democrat in the Senate has voted to raise every tax on every American. So I've introduced the legislation myself. I saw how they voted. So they really can't hide from the fact that they want taxes to go up because they want this money to continue their massive spending programs.
Well, when you say every Democrat, look, I want to ask you, is the Obama plan for higher taxes on the wealthy dead? Because, Senator, you got 41 Republicans, I reckon they're going to vote as a group against any tax hikes at all, including the wealthy. But you've also got Senator Jim Webb, who's kind of a populist from Virginia.
Right.
Joe Lieberman out today. He says he wants a freeze for at least 1 year. And before that, you had Ben Nelson, Evan Bayh, and Ken Conrad. Now, that's 5 plus 41 equals 46. So that means you couldn't end a cloture vote. Does this effectively end Obama's plan or vision to raise taxes on the wealthy?
Well, it could, unless Obama brings these Democrats over to the White House and does what he's done before, twists their arm and change their mind. But they know, I mean, these are so far Democrats, Joe Lieberman and others, being honest, that taking money out of the private sector right now makes absolutely no sense at all. So I'd love to see some Democrats step up and say no to this president, and I hope they will.
See, if you're an investor, I think this whole thing raises, not reduces, the level of uncertainty. Because, Senator, what I hear from yourself right now, we appreciate you always on this show, from Mr. McConnell, who I think is coming on tomorrow evening. But what I'm hearing is the upper-end tax hikes will not occur before the election. But what I see is you won't have a lame duck vote. You won't have a lame duck congressional vote to pass a continuation of the Bush tax rates. You can vote to stop it, but you won't have the vote to actually pass it. Is that true?
Well, Larry, if we do nothing, taxes go up by themselves. So the Democrats can keep us from keeping tax rates the same, and that's what they've been doing. As I said, they've all voted to allow the taxes to go up. When we introduced amendments that would have stopped tax increases on capital gains, on dividends, on marginal income tax rates, they've all voted to let the taxes go up. So I don't know if they change their mind. That would be a huge help, but it makes no sense to let taxes go up on the job creators, the major consumers, and the investors. And you're right, the investors in this country, the business people, don't know what this government's going to do, and that's hurting the economy as much as anything right now.
Well, I think that's right. That's really the point I want to make. There are 109 days left. By the way, I think we lost the lights if viewers saw that. I'm sure it had nothing to do with tax cuts and everything to do with a storm passing over our headquarters. There's 109 days left before the 2003 tax cuts expire. So I'm going to take you at your word. Nothing's going to happen. They're not going to be raised on upper-end people before the election. The lame duck, Mr. DeMint, the lame duck. You're going to have this Erskine-Bowles Deficit Commission, which is going to be a mammoth, humongous commission, right? It's going to have measures, suggestions, proposals for widespread spending reduction, but also for tax reform. So I guess my question is, might the whole issue of the Bush tax cuts expiring or not get lost in the Erskine-Bowles Tax Commission?
I don't think so, Larry. This is something that the Congress doesn't have to vote on. This is just something the president has been doing. and it's very unlikely that we're going to take up major tax reform in a lame duck session. I hope it'll put some good ideas on the table that we can begin to debate with a Republican majority in the House, because that way we can get some really good hearings and talk about some reform ideas. But no, I think the big issue in the lame duck is probably going to be a big omnibus spending bill with thousands of earmarks, and probably some effort to stop the tax increases on at least some Americans. But again, Larry, I think it's important for people to know we can't help the middle class by taking away their jobs. And we do that when we tax investors and job creators.
Well, you know, I'm a free market guy, so I believe successful earners and investors should be rewarded, not penalized for their work. And I don't see what class warfare has to do with a better economy. But you know, Senator, it's just, this is a heck of a way to run the tax railroad. I guess that's what I'm saying, because what we're down to is a one-year extension of the 2003 tax rate reductions. That's just a year, you know? That sort of postpones Art Laffer's train wreck by 1 year. In other words, you could bring your income forward from 2012 into 2011, but you're going to have to face it in 2012. At some point, we're going to have permanent tax reform, are we not?
Well, I hope so. And I think if you talk to businesses, particularly exporters that do business here in America, if we don't fix our tax code, we're not going to have an economy in a few years, because the rest of the world is starting to eat our lunch. I mean, we need to make sure that when we export products that we take out this corporate tax rate so we can be competitive. But fortunately, most of the Republicans running for the House and the Senate are running on major tax reform ideas. And I think we may have that energy after November to tackle the issues of tax reform, fixing Social Security, and hopefully repealing Obamacare.
All right, Senator Jim DeMint of South Carolina, we appreciate your time very, very much, sir.
Thank you, Larry.
All right.